I think there's some balance issues with the game. Like, I think primaries are too underpowered. Like, you have second long time to kills with primaries, then you have instant kill snipers and shotguns and basically fusion rifles, and obviously that doesn't make any sense. So you have people charging at you with shotguns and you cannot kill them before they get to you and shoot you. And subclasses will be nerfed for PvP reasons, and it obviously impacts PvE as well.
Exactly.
Now, they've been better recently at like offsetting it. Like, we're nerfing this gun, but it's getting plus 10% damage in PvE or whatever. They've been better finally at offsetting that.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Casually Hardcore, episode 32. Joining us today, we were very happy to introduce and welcome Rick Kackis from Kackis HD, YouTube, Destiny, looter shooter, like a little bit of Anthem. Maybe we'll tap onto that. Obviously, Division. We brought you on, and we thank you so much for joining the show. Please introduce yourself to those who might not know you and have heard of your channel.
I'm Rick Kackis at Kackis HD, and just produce mostly Destiny content, but love looter shooters. Started with like Borderlands back in the day. Borderlands 3 obviously coming back. And I try to just make helpful content. I do a ton of guides, like my complete raid guides and raid guides for dummies I'm probably pretty known for. And I just love, if my videos can help people in the game, then I'm thrilled about that.
So with that, guys, be sure to check them out. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to dive into, namely around should you return to Destiny 2 in this episode. I do want to say, if you guys missed our last show, we had Mr. Happy talking about kind of the dark side of content creation and communities and raids. So be sure to check that out. Also, we can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, pretty much wherever podcasts are. These podcasts generally go up Monday mornings at 9 on YouTube, and then later over on the audio places for you to listen and enjoy. So please be sure to check us out there as well. We also want to thank our partnership with Exit Lag. Use the link in the description below. The code for 20% off is do work, but you get 3 free days. Check them out if you're having any problems, any kind of lag in the game. Especially if you want to play a game like Lost Ark, which is Korean only right now. That's what got me using them, and then they reached out to the channel. So we thank our partnership with them. But with all the business concluded, let's have some fun and dive in to Destiny as a looter shooter. It's a weird year for the looter shooter, Rick. Like, it's been
It's a big year for the looter shooter.
It's big and it's weird. So we started with Anthem, and you said, oh, all right, fine, yeah. I'm with you. Then Division comes out real strong out the gate. Obviously, is a real good counterpoint to that. But then essentially, you kind of have this almost an epic moment. Destiny, Bungie separating from Activision. That was surprising. Talk to me about like that. What was your reaction, and how are you feeling months after that? Because I think we're seeing the effects.
Like of the split specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Look, that was wild because the thing was, when the split got announced, I was initially worried because I'm thinking, and a lot of other people were thinking this too. It's like, okay, Activision is clearly the financier of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people kind of assumed that they're pulling the strings and all the bad things that were happening in the game was Activision's fault. It's a very easy boogeyman, right?
Yeah.
But the problem was, okay, they split. Maybe you see that it wasn't Activision being the boogeyman at all. I would point to some of the updates that we got, the balancing updates, like made no sense. The community went against them. They nerfed things that shouldn't have been nerfed. They maybe buffed things that didn't make any sense. And Activision had absolutely no, like Activision is not there influencing buffs and nerfs of an update. So that's the thing. It's like if an update can make absolutely no sense, perhaps it's more to blame on the studio itself. In fact, really interestingly, I think this came out just today. Mm-hmm. There's been some new information that came out about like Black Ops 4 is in big doo-doo. Like people are really mad about Black Ops 4 because it's like so hard on the microtransactions. Yeah. And there's some kind of new information that says that the people to blame were actually Treyarch. They're the ones really pushing the microtransactions, not Activision. So that was the big worry. But then they split with Activision.
Mm-hmm.
And they like bust down the door and they come out like, what's up? Cross save.
Mm-hmm.
It's going free to play. Like less egregious microtransactions. They announced that, the way that you get Bright Dust, which is like the in-game currency, is like a little bit easier. It's becoming more like relevant
attainable
in the game. Yeah. And you get it. Previously, you pretty much got it from dismantling, like destroying your collection, but now you get it through bounties for playing the game. And it's like, this all sounds good. And this kind of like destroyed the notion that, oh, maybe it's Bungie. It basically, they came out, they're like, no, it's all Activision. We're being amazing now. So that was great.
What I've told Chris, and I'd like to let Chris share his thoughts on it here in a second, is that I said Bungie is in an interesting spot because essentially they can point backwards right now. But the first time they make a royally bad step, it kind of breaks that illusion. It breaks that goodwill, because ultimately, like as somebody who was really invested in the original, who when I stepped away, it was a hard decision. It was something that I was like, I just cannot support this. Like I didn't like it before, but now I feel like I'm just on a treadmill and I'm part of the problem, and I step away. Now though, like with that, it gives me whether I'm, like I just want an excuse to come back and play, or ultimately what I'm hoping is that the problem was Activision. The problem is like, we want to do this thing. We want to make an MMORPG. We want to make it like in this context, but then they're like, no, you gotta pay the piper. And you could say that Treyarch, because we've actually been playing Black Ops as our game. We have a game guys night that we play on Wednesday nights, and we've been doing that. And then the last one, everybody's like, this sucks. Like, why are they going through my pockets? It feels like every week we're done. We're going back to Halo. We're just gonna go and make that shift. But with
I reinstalled COD World War II actually, and I've been playing that. It has such a better like microtransaction model.
But I still think that no matter what, like even if it's Treyarch making that decision, there is a reason that's driving that. Like okay,
Yeah.
And Call of Duty as a whole product and IP, Chris has said, it's like, why are people spending money? Because in a year it's irrelevant. It's not like there's a Call of Duty, marketplace that it all follows you from game to game. It's just throwaway. Go ahead.
I somewhat disagree with that because only recently they've actually been upgrading and updating their games past their prime. I mentioned COD World War II. Mm-hmm. That actually got new weapons, like not even that long ago. Like they are still updating the old games because I hate to say it, but kind of because of these microtransaction model. If people are still buying these loot boxes, it's like, okay, well, we're going to update this game. And that's a lot better than what happened. I'm sure you guys remember like Modern Warfare 2. Mm-hmm. Like that game was so close to being perfect. And why did they never nerf noob tubes, right? It's because Black Ops, if they had done the fateful like nerf and made that game totally balanced, a lot of people maybe wouldn't have bought Black Ops, right? And so they just completely left it to die. And you see that a lot with the old games, but now because the new games actually are getting supported even when like there's a newer Call of Duty out, which is cool. But I agree with what you're saying. It's like, especially if you spend money in the game, you get these like weapons, like they don't carry forward into the next game. They like, you lose all your progress. There's no market to trade them or anything like that. They're just like completely wasted once you stop playing the game.
There is a bigger conversation. Chris, you look like you got some thoughts I want to toss to you before I jump into my monologue.
So Call of Duty is an interesting model because it is a largely annualized game. And they don't just die. If you want to go play an old Call of Duty, you can. But the server times are... You have a smaller audience to play with. You have a smaller player base. And so, it's awesome to hear that they're supporting them more now than they have back in the day. Because back in the day, if you were always welcome to go play the previous one. It just was not the same experience as staying in the current tier and staying in that current content. Because they've always encouraged you to pay that $60 annually. And the reason we ultimately quit is because they started introducing Black Ops 4. They've started introducing new guns that if you are on the paid model or you play an excessive number of hours, you can have these guns that have no kick, perfect sight, downrange, a banana clip in there. It's like 3 bullets to kill. You got 30 bullets to the clip. It's ridiculous. Oh, you didn't pay? Oh, well, then you can use the normal weapons in the back there. And so it's just gotten frustrating. But to get back to Destiny, like it's how a game carries forward is a huge piece of this. The Destiny 1 to Destiny 2 transition was just such a gamble. It was such a needless. And so I think that seeing them make this move to being their own studio, I don't know if it fixes all of this. I think it definitely earns them a second chance, but it's on thin ice in my opinion. So like what keeps us from feeling that like this is just Destiny 3? Like this is just a separate Destiny. Now that it's under its own, is it that much of a shift?
Well, I think the main things is like free to play and cross save are like, these are things that people ask for, and these are things that in the Vidoc they were like, we wanted to do cross save since the beginning. They said in the Vidoc, like it's a quote, they're like, we couldn't for capital R reasons. So they're throwing shade maybe at Sony, maybe at Activision, at someone.
A little bit of both. Somebody signed a contract. Yeah, a big deal. Go ahead.
And it's literally the studio saying, we wanted more for the game. We wanted to have these features, and we weren't able to get them because of some other entity. So that kind of shows you that it is possible. And cross save is so big. Like, you know, for me, I'm on PlayStation 4. Mm-hmm. I would love to go to PC,
right?
But I couldn't justify regrinding just all I had done on the PS4. And, you know, and if I couldn't justify regrinding it, a lot of other people out there, of course, couldn't justify regrinding it. But now being able to just like transfer that stuff to the PC or to Xbox, like, hey, you're on PS4, you got some friends on Xbox, you can hop over there and play with them and then hop back to your, like that is so huge. And I think what people are understating as well is I think like cross save will work with Stadia, I believe. And the Google Stadia obviously, you know, is a new thing, but if it's to be believed that, hey, you get a good internet connection and anywhere you can get Google Chrome, you can play your character, your actual character, no matter what. Like that's pretty darn sweet. Like you go into your grandma's house for a week or whatever. I'm just throwing out like bring your Stadia and you play. You're good to go. You don't need to like.
I wasn't a believer until just this last couple weeks. We've we haven't been sponsored or partnered with anybody, but we had a company reach out about Shadow PC. I'm talking like just to briefly leave it with them. It's a Windows PC in the cloud, and they've got a couple data centers. We happen to be in Texas. There's one in Texas. This works out great. I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV completely in the cloud, and I've been streaming it, and I have no latency whatsoever. Like it is just like if it was running on my desktop. You know what's great about that? From a stream perspective, my PC is literally just handling the stream. All the game processing running at max settings, like at 90 frames a second, because they capped it for some random reason, you know, is there, and it's being rocking and rolling. And to your point though, like about like the PS4 and the cross save, I am so excited. That's actually, I was always like, when they bring back cross save, and they've even talked about investing in cross play at some point in the future. PvP is a debate that everybody will always have, but when you talk about the PvE game, nobody cares. You're on PC, you're on PlayStation 4, we're killing a boss. Nobody cares if you're running at 144 frames a second uncapped, blah blah blah. Great, that actually might help us out. Please bring your best. But I'm sitting here looking at it and saying, I no longer have to hear them say, but we love our PC community, but we love our Xbox community, whenever they're like, and PlayStation gets all this free exclusive stuff that you might get in a year or you might get at some point later. And it's like,
which is ending now.
Exactly. I was like, that's gone. Cross save is coming in. I can sit here and run Destiny. Like if, I don't know if we'll check out Stadia, but like I can run into my Chrome. I could, boom. Like it kind of almost defeats the cloud in and of itself. Seems to be like it has a potential to be a one console future mindset outside of exclusives.
And this is combined with the fact that it's going to go free to play. So it's like anyone on any console at any time, like on any platform, is good to play Destiny 2, which is huge. And the free to play version is looking really good, actually.
Yeah, and there. What's interesting about the free to play version, and this is kind of like a part of the state of the game itself, and this is the first bullet point. Destiny 2 kind of feels like it's been a journey to get back to Destiny 1. And when you look at the free-to-play New Light, like they're actually starting you off in the Destiny 1 first mission. And they've talked about like raids, and Luke Smith had I think you just covered it on your channel talking about, like, hey, are they going to bring back the old raids? And they said they might do some kind of seasonal stuff.
They're always leaving the door open.
Yeah, always leaving it open. I want to see Destiny 1, Destiny 2, drop the 1s and 2s, bring it into just Destiny, and never see a Destiny 3, or at least whatever, for not another 15 years. Because the difference that we talked about as it relates to Call of Duty, and them, even though they're supporting the old games, like, I like the game that I can invest in, that like the grind that I'm putting in now pays off in 5 years, pays off in 10 years, because it is my character. This is this journey of a changing and evolving world. And the other thing that brought me back was MMO. they're finally not hiding behind that term. I was like, why is this thing? You know, it feels like an MMO, but they're not calling it that. And I'm
Yeah,
wondering
they're
if
afraid to.
what was it? Do you think Activision was saying no, or do you think
No,
Bungie?
that was kind of Bungie. Like there's a little bit more kind of there's a little bit more working parts to the background of the launch of Destiny 1 and 2 than I think people realize. And I think like part of the reason where like I was actually excited for Destiny 2 and a lot of people were saying, oh, why don't they, you know, keep Destiny 1 forever? Like it should just keep adding on to that. Well, the problem was that like it had a rotten foundation. Like the technology they were using to build the levels took like way too long. Like they had problems with that and they actually did. It's a lot better in Destiny 2. But like that's the thing, like the engine, there was some problems, like the way the loot worked, the way like they had some problems with the foundation that they couldn't just keep building on top of it. And so by launching a new game, getting those new tools to build new levels and stuff to help them produce content so much faster, like that's the things that people don't, I think, consider what like, and that's why eventually there's also going to eventually need to be a Destiny 3 because it's like we need to have update our engine and do stuff that we can't do when we're just adding on to the current game forever.
When does that happen though?
I have no idea. Hopefully in a long enough time. Like Destiny 2 is a solid enough foundation. Well, I mean, I know it launched terribly, but you know, it's a solid enough foundation that they can add quite a few new DLCs to it, I believe, until it's like really problematic.
My perspective, like in retrospect, because Chris and I did a 24-hour marathon get to cap and played through the campaign, and the campaign I thought was solid. It was actually really by the time Osiris came around that all of a sudden you realize that the foundation's just sand, you know. And I was like, oh man, it felt like they all got together with some focus groups about people who didn't actually care about Destiny 1. Like, why'd you stop playing? And they're like, oh, I don't like MMOs and this is what I would change. And so
it's
they
too
gutted
hard.
it.
I can't get the amazing loot. And then they remove random rolls. And it
random rolls. The RPG, like there's like, I'm like, well, okay, well, you know, the builds are super simplified. There's a balancing perspective where that like is a strength, but I didn't feel like I was like a character. Like I felt like I was gutted. And the glass shattering moment was like we sacrificed all of what made the game that I loved about the game to get a better campaign. And that was like, that's not a fair trade-off. Like, yeah, the campaign needed to kind of exist, and yeah, they brought in a lot of cool stuff that they needed to do, but all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like and that's where the journey has been as I've seen it unfold is like, oh, now this thing from Destiny 1's back. Yay. You know, at what point can we say, yeah, we're done. And now it's all about the future. And we're not sitting here just like, hey, remember the moon? Because Shadowkeep's coming up. We're going back to the moon. I'm excited.
Yeah. I think though, like the moon, like the moon area, they're bringing back a lot of the areas. They're giving them a facelift, but I think like the moon in Destiny 2, they've said is twice the size as Destiny 1. So basically you're essentially getting, you know, a new area.
Yeah.
And it honestly, it makes sense to me where it's like, okay, we can have this new moon area that's completely new, or we can bring back the old moon, give it a facelift, and then add even more areas. So I think at the end of the day, you do get a little bit more content doing it that way. Like people are always going to be like, oh, it's recycled content. It's like, and it kind of is, but it's also, it's like, you know, if you didn't play Destiny 1, then you're totally new content. Like there's a whole lot of players out there, especially when it goes free to play, that have not touched Destiny 1 and have no clue that they're replaying some facelifted content in Destiny 1. So they're just like, wow, this is an insanely big map. This is totally beneficial to me. And that's kind of also the thing when they keep bringing back the Destiny 1 exotics, which I got to admit, it's nice that they're often putting spins on them. Like, you know, the Thorn in Destiny 1 and 2 acts very differently because its perks are different. It looks the same, but it acts differently. But again, these are only problems for people who played Destiny 1. If you didn't, you are just getting content on content on content.
Chris, how do you feel like in this regards? Because out of the three of us here, Rick's been continuing to play and cover the game. I've been away for 18 months and you have been burned and you haven't picked up the game. And when I talk about it, you're like, I don't care. Like
I typically stick with games a little longer than Brian, but then once I take a break, it's kind of forever. Like it's really hard to get me back because in my mind, there's games coming out, feels like every other day that I'm not going to get to. And I want to get to. I want the time. There's always that next game on the horizon. There's always going to be, the next division, the next. And so why would I go backwards to try a game that burned me when there's games out there that I haven't yet tried? Now there's something different happening here because there's actually a change in the dynamic of the studio in a substantial sense. So it's not just, there's a new lead designer, or they're changing their engine, or something like that, where it's like, yes, but everything else is still structurally the same. And so it's effectively gonna just mold that one piece to fit what was. It's like, this could actually be a big enough change that causes me to want to come back. What I'd want to see is what I enjoyed so much about Destiny 1. I played a ton of Destiny 1. I enjoyed Destiny 1. And then I logged into the first time of Destiny 2, and like, it felt different from the moment you logged in. And then you get out the other side of the campaign and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, there's nothing here. And I had bought the collector's edition, so I don't even think I was eligible for that refund. I didn't apply for it, but it was just like, cool. Like, you're going to lock my friends out if they don't buy DLC. And there was this total shift there. And we can say that like back to the Call of Duty thing, we can say that like, this is the Treyarch versus this is Activision, but they're all connected. It doesn't, as long as they're married, they're still married, because the people at Treyarch could be making those decisions, because what you're not seeing is that there may have been a policy that came down the pipe that said you only get your bonus based on the amount of stuff sold in DLC. So of course they push DLC. So I look forward to seeing what Bungie's identity is outside of Activision. Not as a dig on Activision, just as it's like meeting somebody for the first time again. Like, who is Bungie?
Yeah, Bungie was married to Microsoft, and we had Halo, and we had a really good relationship there. And then they went, and when they announced they got into bed with Activision, I remember the day. Like, everybody was like, "Well, I guess we'll see how this goes."
Yeah,
but they have the money. I mean, it's like the fear that I have, and I don't know if Rick, if you kind of share the same thing, is just that, I mean, it's really make or break for Bungie. It's Bungie's game to lose. Like, they're the publisher there, and I'm like, honestly, I was shocked, because it's like, as much as Phil Spencer plays Destiny, it's like, that he had, for as much as he loves the games, like, that he must not really enjoy that deal with PlayStation, and that it's like, well, maybe Microsoft will step in, but then Bungie decides to go and self-publish, and I was like, okay, that's an interesting play. I think it's the right play, because it's, again, I think Destiny's better as a whole Destiny community that no one's cut off. But oh my gosh, like, do we know? Go, Chris.
Do we know how this is going to work with free to play? Like, do we know how, if they tie a bunch of new raids, like what? I haven't been following all of the current Destiny news. Like, what stops them from? How do they make money on this game? Like, ultimately, what is the bottom line? How much do I have to spend, and what am I spending it on to keep them in business?
So I can answer that. So basically, Destiny 2. It's called Destiny 2 New Light. It's kind of its own version. It's the free-to-play version. And what it does is, like you said, it has a new mission of kind of the start of Destiny 1, just kind of throwing you into the world. And that's simply there for people who've never experienced a Destiny game, because it's kind of weird to throw them in right to the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting part about Destiny 2 New Light is that you get all the content of Destiny 2 and Curse of Osiris and Warmind. Now, we know Curse of Osiris wasn't the best. Warmind actually was decent. But looking at that from a free-to-play package, you get... And I think it's important to also say right here that, like you said, you left Destiny 2, and you're like, there's all these other new games to try. One of those new games is Destiny 2 Forsaken. It is a new game. They completely overhauled the weapon system. So, like, double primaries, and then your heavy was your power weapon. That your power went down so much from Destiny 1. That's completely changed. You can use, both your slots are totally open. You can use like shotgun and sniper if you want to. Bad idea, but you can. So now that system is back. So it feels totally different. All the subclasses have been completely rebalanced and all that stuff. And you're a lot more powerful, all that stuff. So you get, again, for a free-to-play version, you get all of the Destiny 2 content, a raid. The Curse of Osiris and Warmind both have raid layers, so you get more endgame content there. And importantly, you get all of the locations that have been added. So you get the Dreaming City and the Tangled Shore from Forsaken, and you get the Moon from this brand new expansion, right? Why is that? Well, you can actually go to, in the free-to-play version, you can go to the moon, you can do all the patrol mode stuff, which is pretty sweet. But mainly it's because you then can play the marquee activities. So if you're playing Gambit, if you're playing, you can actually get Gambit Prime too. But if you're playing Crucible, so PvP, if you're playing Strikes, because you have technically the moon on, the Tangled Shore, Dreaming City, all those things, if any of the maps are on the moon. So if you're a free-to-play version player and you're playing with your buddy who has all the DLCs and you're playing PvP and it's a map on the moon, you also get the moon. So you can play those marquee activities with paying players. That's the important thing. Strikes, Crucible, Gambit, like you are totally able to access all that. How they get you to pay is the kind of one layer above that. So exotic quests, the new raids, stuff like that, those you have to pay to access. So you have to pay for Shadowkeep to get the new Shadowkeep raid, to get the new dungeon, to get the exotic quests, to get the new gear from it.
Yeah, and it's that expansion and that seasonal content mindset as opposed to like, go ahead, Chris.
How often is that and how much is that? How much does it cost me if I want to play every year? So I've been playing free to play. I love it. I want to do that next tier of content. What does that cost me over what increment of time?
So, well, I think Forsaken obviously will be bumped down to like probably $20-$30. I don't know. There are going to be sales all the time. Shadowkeep right now is like $30. And then there's a new annual pass planned. But the important thing is that before, it's like, okay, you want Shadowkeep? You got to buy Forsaken too, right? That was in the past. It was like, you want the new thing? You have to have the old ones. That's going away because it's free-to-play model. Everything is individual. So if you're like, okay, I don't really care about Shadowkeep, it doesn't interest me, but I want the Dreaming City, I want the Forsaken stuff. You can specifically buy Forsaken. Same with the annual passes. It's like, we had some annual passes like Season of the Drifter recently, not that great, but Season of Opulence, phenomenal. So you as a free-to-play player currently you have to buy the entire annual pass. $30 to get all three things. You can't buy them individually. Now it's like I can spend $10 just on the best one of the year, play the heck out of it, right? And then I think, of course, there'll end up being bundles and stuff to get it cheaper. Sure. But that's how the model is going to work.
Yeah, it seems like it's going into ESO model, or almost in a way of a battle pass kind of model, if you think of the annual pass and with an expansion. Like for me, I've never had any problem supporting a game, and I love that they're bringing in that free to play and let you experience the game, because essentially what it does is that if you're playing with friends and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, and then the fact that you can go do the content with your friends, you're not separated it, but then all of a sudden your friends are here and you're like, oh man, I really like to go do that. Okay, well, what season is that a part of? I can pick that up, and if they're
and that's one of the biggest best things about them being independent, and because that scared so many people away. It was so people forget how crappy it was, because like Forsaken, like I said, Forsaken, it became a totally new game, but it was hard to convince people when it first came out. Hey, get Forsaken. How much does it cost? This. Okay, cool. That actually, I'll do it. It's like, oh wait, did you buy Warmind and Curse of Osiris? No. Oh, you got to buy both of them before you can buy Forsaken. That was some BS.
Yeah. My order actually ended up being that when I returned, I had I literally was like, oh, I still have Osiris. I have Warmind. Okay. So I ended up going and just doing the Warmind campaign and then going and doing Forsaken. And then my buddy got on. He's like, oh, so yeah, because he returned as well. And he's like, okay. Oh yeah, let's go and do it. Then I went and did Osiris. And after that, I was like, oh man, I'm glad I left. It was just I just was like, how could they have done this to Osiris? At least from how everything was built up in my mind, from the lore and the world. And I was like, when they announced it, I was like, it was annoyed that they called those expansions. I was like, those are DLC drops. Those are seasonal things. The expansion has always been the kind of the once a year, major content drop. And then essentially where they're going with the seasonal model, it seems to be far supported. And the fact is that you can dive in for free and then go shopping. That's where I was like, now it's starting to feel like a fair model in which that I, as a player, if I'm enjoying it, I can support the game. And if I am a player who's playing around, I'm like, nope, I'll come back and check it out. Yeah. Maybe I need to take a break.
This is on top of the fact that, you were just talking about paid DLCs. There's also going to be quite a few free events. There's one right now, Solstice of Heroes, coming out next week. Everyone can go and earn armor and stuff. And a lot of those free-to-play players will be able to access them and get, whatever the cosmetic rewards, sometimes new weapons and stuff. Like there was an exotic weapon associated with a previous one. So that's something too, is like if you're a free-to-play player and you don't want to spend any money, you are still getting these, cool events that are limited time things, and you still get stuff to do. It's not like you're just like waiting around for nothing.
So yeah, I was asking because from my perspective, like when we ask, like, well, what is Bungie going to be doing different? You can always track the money. So what they offer us for free sounds awesome. It sounds like an incredible reason to come back. Where I wonder where they're going to go from here is how they make money, because they're going to have to keep the doors open now. They can't just cash a check from Activision.
I think
things are going to have to be good enough to draw out my pocketbook, right?
But that's going to be the easy part, to be honest, because like I think free to play is so like, how did Apex Legends get 25 million players in like a month? It's because you're like, hey, go download this game. How much is it? It's free. Like that is such a selling factor, and people always forget that. That's how Fortnite got big. That's how free to play is so big. And because their audience, like when Black Ops 3 went free to play on PlayStation, like the player bases were like Black Ops 3's player base was like quintuple the player of the new Call of Duty just from that. Like it's insane. So how are they going to make money? It's because they're going to have so many more people playing the game, and they're going to put out an expansion, and obviously there's hype around it. There's new weapons, there's new exotics, there's a new raid, and any of your friends that pay for it, and they're walking around with the new stuff, and it's looking hella dope. And wait a sec, what does that exotic fusion rifle do? What the heck? That's their selling point, is just make decent content and have such a large free-to-play audience that everyone's just going to try to... I mean, Fortnite makes hella money just for making sweet skins, and your one friend buys it, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll get it too. Like, that's all they do.
There's an interesting story about that, though. Like, as far as it has, kind of bad stories about kids, it's like there are stories in which that, like, oh, you wear, like, if you're at a private school and you're just in uniforms, like the kids are bullying each other because they don't have certain Fortnite skins or whatever, trying to find something that's like, oh, my dad, like,
what was the term that they used in that article?
What was
they call the kid default.
Defaults. Oh my god, you're a default skin.
You're such a default.
Oh my, that's actually pretty good.
So
that's pretty clever.
So that is actually where that starts to alarm me. If the expansion isn't selling itself, one of the ways to fix it is there not a fear that they'll tie those really good guns behind that raid? They'll go tie.
Well, they will, but that's the point. Like the raid guns are supposed to be good. The exotics are supposed to be good. Like
better in PvP?
I mean, that's a hard thing to answer because certain exotics are better than others, for sure. The thing is, how Destiny 2 is balanced right now, like you can do PvP and probably just do fine with the stuff you're going to get in New Light. Like there's enough solid weapons that you should be able to be fine. Like, will you be absolutely top tier? No, but you're free to play. Like you shouldn't expect access to absolutely everything.
As an RPG with that PvP mentality. Go ahead and finish your thought. I'm going to come back to it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I just you're 100% right. They could release a new exotic that's absolutely banging and it's tied behind an expansion.
Prometheus.
But that's what they've been doing anyways. Some of the best like guns, the new ones that have come out, the 1K Voices is tied behind Forsaken. It's a Gambit All-Star and all this stuff. So like they kind of already do that. Like some of the best weapons are tied behind certain DLCs, and the difference is that at least now they're offering a free to play entry point. Like it's better than, the thing is, it's not like it's better than a previous model. It's better than nothing. Like right now you got to pay God knows how much to get
just to get started.
Yeah, just to get started. And now it's like totally free. And if you might have slightly underpowered weapons, but compared to paying $100 to get into the game, I think that's not even a comparison.
But that issue in and of itself is a PvP issue. And PvE, ultimately, it's just like, okay, like you're playing with your friends or whatever. I've always loved and enjoyed the PvP, but what has never really worked about it for like our group, because we have people of different walks of life, like, oh, you haven't gone and grinded out that amazing weapon, you're not going to enjoy PvP because people are just going to destroy you. Custom games helps offset that a little bit, but I have long, and I'm curious about like your opinion, I have long from a competitive or a mode in which that the builds were locked, like literally like a predefined build, you compete over power weapons. I'm a huge Halo fan. I've always enjoyed that combat, and I don't want Destiny to be that, right? But obviously, like it's got its it's got its history tied to Halo for a long time, and I have always thought it would be nice if that there was a mode in which that you could kind of set the RPG aside and have that real true to true competition in which that maybe it was just a hunter or warlock or a titan. You pick your build and like those are the guns, and you have these guns, you have this kind of loadout, and it balances itself out. Like I know that like Bungie's been talking about how in Shadowkeep they're going to be returning to kind of an investment in PvP because as somebody who was a part of the community, as somebody who's returning to the community, but still is kind of an outsider because I don't know of everything. Because I when I said I left, like I stopped watching Destiny content, I stopped following Destiny content. I was like, I'm not gonna keep looking at my girlfriend's Instagram, and it's like no, we're done. But as somebody who's coming back, it's like I've heard that people are not satisfied with the PvP game right now. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm definitely more of a PvE guy. I've never really super enjoyed the Destiny 2 PvP. Like even I'll go into PvP and like drop quite a lot of kills, have like a 4.0 KD, and I'll still be annoyed because a few times I died because I think there's some balance issues with the game. Like I think primaries are too underpowered. Like you have second long time to kills with primaries, then you have instant kill snipers and shotguns and basically fusion rifles, and obviously that doesn't make any sense. So you have people charging at you with shotguns and you cannot kill them before they get to you and shoot you. There's a whole other kind of
I stepped into PvP. I've just been focused on PvP. I stepped in and I was dead all the time, and I was like, what?
Everyone has got their ideas about how to balance it. Your idea has been floated around because there's always been problems. Like I think as a PvE player, a lot of the times you get frustrated because guns and subclasses will be nerfed for PvP reasons, and it obviously impacts PvE as well.
Exactly.
Now they've been better recently at like offsetting it. Like we're nerfing this gun, but it's getting plus 10% damage in PvE or whatever. They've been better finally at offsetting that. As to your point about like a guarantee, like again, these ideas have been floated around. Yeah, locked loadouts, specific weapons and gear only to PvP that cannot be used in PvE and either or. And Bungie's response to all of this has always been like, look, we're an RPG game and we're an investment game. And as cool as that sounds to have a locked loadout, for a lot of people, you go and you get a really good gun. Like you go and you get a Bygones pulse rifle with an amazing roll. You want to use that in PvP. You get a PvP roll. You want to have that weapon and use it in all aspects of the game, whatever aspects of the game you want to use it in. And if we start to say, no, this is just a PvE gun, people are going to start to, it kind of ruins the entire, like.
I get that. I want to just kind of clarify. I want to clarify just a second. Is that not that you couldn't use that gun in.
No, I know. It's a specific mode.
Right. Well, think of competitive, right? You look at competitive and I was like, why do I do competitive? And it's like, where it's like, here are some predefined rules that, like not that you can't use that gun. It's like maybe that gun's not up this week. But when anybody goes into it, maybe they don't have that gun. And all of a sudden they have that gun in PvE in this competitive mode. They get to play with it. And they're like, how do I get this in PvE?
I hear what you're saying. And I wouldn't even be opposed to them doing a special comp mode that has preset loadouts or something like that. I wouldn't even be opposed to that. But what I'm saying, I'm just giving Bungie's response is your character is your character is your character. And when you develop your character, it transfers to any aspect of the game. And they think it's healthy that you can have a comp build setup and then move to a PvE setup. That's their answer. That is what they've said.
That's a fun answer.
This has been a debate since Destiny 1, day one, of people being like, this makes no sense. Why isn't there a division between PvP and PvE? It's always been an issue.
Chris, you look like you got a thought.
Well, my character wasn't my character when I went from Destiny 1 to Destiny 2. They stripped all my stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not. I just if you're going to have competitive, be competitive. And so if truth is the best weapon in the game, then have a week where the special weapon that spawns on the map is whatever. Hey, Osiris is going to be, we have a sale on Osiris. For those of you that haven't bought Osiris, we want you to. This week in PvP, the weapon that's spawning on the maps are weapons from Osiris. And if you enjoy those weapons, here's where you can get them. And so you can use it as a selling mechanism just in those two forms of PvP. Halo has Warzone, and Warzone allows you to basically take loot boxes in and just mow each other down, go nuts, but it's not ranked play.
Yeah.
And separate that. So if I'm going into ranked play, where I have a great...
You're making points. I think...
So that's...
Yeah,
it's one of my core issues and that comes from, so you like PvE, so PvP, if the PvP is affected, it's like, well, what do you want me to do? I like PvE. So from our side, what I struggle with is my favorite part of shooters is that somebody who's good at shooters is good at shooters, period. If you shoot well, you shoot well. If you don't, you don't. It doesn't matter. You can play 1,000 hours, and if you haven't mastered accuracy, you're garbage at a shooter. And so we play games once a week with friends that we play shooters because they're really easy to, I miss a few rounds, I get in early, I take off. And so the shooting games and racing games are the two easiest ones. They're very arcade-like. And where Destiny, where we struggled was they didn't have anything unlocked. They were happy to pay for the game. That wasn't the issue. It wasn't a free-to-play issue. They're happy to pay for the game. They're happy to pay for the expansion. But then we hop on, we go into PvE or PvP together, it doesn't matter. And they were so far behind. And so it felt more like an MMO and less like a shooter. It would just be nice to have aspects of both.
Go ahead, Rick.
I see what you're saying for sure. I think that problem could have been solved with, if you want to just buy the game and hop into PvP, you're going to get destroyed. Like, as simple as that. But do a little bit of research, maybe like just do the main campaign, get to level 30, and there's some starting guns that belong to good archetypes that like are not, as good as the meta weapons, but are like not that far behind. Like, for example, the Bygones pulse rifle is an insanely powerful pulse rifle. You can buy it from a vendor, I think, with an incredibly good roll. So you can get a very good version and just buy it outright and become competitive. But there are guns that exist within that same archetype, do the same damage, shoot exactly as fast, that are year one guns that you can, if you figure out what those are, then you can go after them and get them relatively easily and then be competitive. But if you want to jump in, you're going to get destroyed. And they're going to have to think about what to do, especially because when it goes free to play, a lot of people are going to do that. Jump in and get destroyed.
The best thing that Destiny did introduce, and it was weird that they 2 didn't launch with it. That was kind of a frustration why we ended up not recommending it to our friends, was that they didn't have custom matches for PvP, and they do now. And that was essentially where it's like, okay, let's, because custom games is such a huge value, especially when you're just playing among friends, because then at that point you can self-balance the teams so that everybody can end up having a good time. Oh, me and Chris, we're OP. Well, let's not put each other on the same team. Let's go ahead and, that way everybody can start to learn. And I haven't actually got a chance to play a custom game yet in Destiny 2 because I was gone by the time it was introduced. And does custom games still give EXP? Because when they introduced it in 1.0 Destiny 1, you could technically level up and get some drops, which I thought was a really good compromise because it's not the most efficient way, but it's still that you're not wasting time grinding.
I don't believe so. No. It's just its own thing. But like, again, it's like I agree it's a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem, but you are describing a pretty specific scenario where I hop into the game, I have basically nothing, and I want to go straight to PvP. If you take a few days, grind some strikes, grind Gambit. Gambit has some very good weapons that will function quite well in PvP. Like, all it takes is you grind Gambit for a few days. Oh, wait, I just got a rocket launcher, a good rocket launcher with tracking. Okay, that's a great heavy for PvP. Oh, I got the Bygones. That's great. I got a shotgun with a good roll. You're set now. Like, again, it won't be like absolute top tier. It'll be just below. And you'll be able, if you're a good player, you'll be able to, especially if you're just doing like quick play and stuff, you'll be able to function totally fine.
So let's dive into some conversation about armor. Like, and obviously changes that we're excited about. They've announced Armor 2.0. They've talked about the mod system. They've talked about embracing the RPG and the MMO. So Rick, what are you most excited about? Because beyond the free to play aspect, right? Like, I think that's a smart. We all, I think, probably think that's probably a really smart business move. Hopefully, it works out, because the worst case scenario is they go free to play. Everybody's like, "This is great," and they never make a dime, and then the game goes away, and everybody's like, "I loved it. What happened to it?" But beyond the financial, like, what content, what system changes that they talked about, are you most excited for? That you, especially for somebody who's, the ultimate question is that somebody who's like, "Hey, I haven't played this in a while. Should I come back with a free to play version?" Like, what should they be excited about as well?
So I think, like, again, one of the biggest difference is that the change to the entire gun system that happened at Forsaken, like, answering the question of like, why should I come back? The game plays differently. Like you were saying, oh, I logged on Destiny 2 and it feels different from Destiny 1. Yeah, you're 100% correct. But now if you log on, you're immediately going to say, oh, this feels different than Destiny 2 launch. Forsaken was the turning point. And of course, again, it's been hard to convince people to come back because they have to pay so much money. Not anymore with the free-to-play version. So what I'm looking forward to, obviously, like, the new content, so like new weapons, new exotics, the new raid, a new dungeon. Like, obviously, as someone who plays a lot of the game, anything new like that is super exciting. I think the biggest feature is, like, I think you said, the Armor 2.0 system, the complete redesign and overhaul of the armor system, and it's a big deal. Like, if you want, I can explain it to you guys.
I watched your video.
How it works.
But no, go ahead and explain a little bit, like, because I've watched your video, so I'm very well. Okay. Like, I love it. I love that you have like energy. I love that you're equipping mods. But go ahead.
In short form, like right now, you have a piece of armor, and you equip a mod to it. That's it. End of story. And it has either mobility, resilience, or I think resistance that it can spawn between like two, and you can make one bigger than the other. Basically, it affects like your pretty minor things, honestly. Armor 2.0 will now have, on top of those stats, it has discipline, which affects your grenade recharge, strength, which affects your melee, and intellect, which affects your super. So now your armor, before, like, you had some problems where a lot of armor is very underwhelming, but now when you get armor with Armor 2.0, you're looking for those good stat rolls as well. And they won't, like, if you have, it won't be like massive changes as opposed to not, but it's just like one more extra thing to grind for and to look for. But the overhaul to the mod system is huge. Like, now you get a set form of energy, and all the mods in the game are weighted. Sometimes they cost 1 energy, sometimes they cost 6. So a certain armor piece, like the one they showed in the gameplay, has 8 energy. So you can put, a 6 value mod on, and then a 2 value mod, and that's it. And potentially, they also said you can upgrade your armor too. So you can get the 8 energy to 10 and put even more mods on. Do you want to put, if you have 8 energy, do you want to put 4 2 value mods? Do you want to put like 2 3s and then a 2? Like, you have so much more options than just armor, 1 mod, that's it.
I hope that it's the armor and then it powers up by you playing and using it, right? Because that's one of the things I really liked about the guns is, like, you're playing and the guns are leveling up. That the weapons and the things that you have are leveling up. And I always thought
guns don't really level up.
Not anymore, but in Destiny 1, it was like you would have to, and then you'd get those motes, so you could just like, oh, I got all these motes, power up my weapon instantly and kind of go from there. But, with hopefully opening up either interesting quests that kind of increase the power, or just by just playing the game and getting experience, that it's like, hey, now you can have 9. You have 9 energy.
Yeah.
That
and
changes
it lets,
your build.
And it's one of those cool features that, although it like increases the grind, it increases what you're going for and the stuff you're looking for, it also makes it so that when you do get a piece of armor that's very good, you're set. Like, you can now change the mods around. Like you said, you can keep using it, upgrade it. Importantly, there's transmogrification too. So you can make that piece of armor look like any other piece of armor, even that year 1 armor. Like, you like the Christopher Cyrus armor. The one thing you liked about that DLC was the armor. Boom. You make your whole thing look like a set of Curse of Osiris armor. And that's another factor. It's like, everyone's characters, for the most part, look hideous because everyone's just using the best armor with the enhanced perks and stuff like that. And now it's going to be a lot easier to customize your guy and make him look how you want him to look.
So what gives people that kind of armor lust, or that drive to go out and get the hardest things in the game, if it's all just going to end up looking like you're kind of almost what we would call in 14 a glamour set?
Well, you're still going for, so you still want to go and get armor that firstly has better rolls of the stats. So you can get armor that potentially comes with more intellect than your other armor. Like it has not as good stats. So you want those stats to increase your recharges. And also specifically, I'm not 100% sure how it's going to work with the new armor system, but in this current system, you have perks, then you have enhanced perks. So you can get shotgun loader to make your shotgun reload faster, but the harder, more end game activities like the raid, that armor can drop with enhanced shotgun loader. So it's even faster reload. So it gives you a reason to go and do some of that end game content.
Good. Yeah, it's always there, you know, like content for the sake of, because people will ask the question, well, can a game just be fun? And it's like, yeah, a game, you know, you go and you play through a game and it's fun. But there's then when you're talking about a game that you have content that is repeatable, like it then boils down to incentive, because fun is great, but then at some point you're like, I'm having this, like, I went to the same party, like, you know, at some point you're having a Groundhog's Day moment where it's like, it's the same day over and over again. You know, why am I doing this? Let's go on and do variety being the spice of life. So incentive comes into play there. I'm
glad you mentioned that, because there's very recently Bungie nerfed this new activity, the Menagerie. And essentially before you could go, it was a cool activity. You had a chalice and you put runes in this chalice, and depending on what runes, you could get specific loot. So that's another great way of, like, it's still a grind, but you have a little bit more control. It's like, you want the sniper, you can actually go and get that sniper every single time. But there was a thing where you could go and get the chest, run into a different area, it would reload, run back, get the chest again. And so in one activity, you could get the chest like 5 times. And I think they obviously intended for once. So they recently nerfed it from 5 down to just once. And basically most people, like the vast majority of the community, myself, like every other like YouTuber streamer I saw, was like, well, I'm not doing the Menagerie anymore, because the problem was we all did it. We all hit it so many times. I don't have the absolute perfect, you know, hand cannon Austringer roll that I want, but I have some rolls that are good enough and close enough that I can't justify going in and just getting one roll and then doing it another 20-minute activity and getting one more roll, doing another, like, I can't justify that time spent. And so, you know, I made a video, and a lot of other people were saying, like, look, this was a bad nerf. You're killing the player base of this activity. Like, no one wants to do it anymore. And a lot of people were, to your point, saying, like, why don't you want to play the Menagerie? It's fun. And it was fun. It's one of the best activities I've added in a while. It's like, if it's fun, why don't you just play it? Like, you're playing a video game. Shouldn't you be having fun? And it's like, yes, but also part of the fun in any loot-based, like, investment game is improving your character. And if you're not improving your character, and if you're spinning your wheels and going nowhere, that's not fun to me. And that's not fun to most people out there.
Yeah, that's why I was like, the point of custom games is that if we're sitting here doing, you know, private games, is that you're sacrificing something. Like, okay, you know, I'm sacrificing progress, and there's an innate adult aspect of, well, I only have a limited amount of time to play these games. I am now having to make a choice between, like, actually, like, making some progress in something, or do this other activity in which that I like. And so, like, I remember them when they, because I, like, the last update I saw before, like, you know, just somebody, I think Dustin Legary was talking about it, like, on his podcast, where I was like, it showed up on my YouTube autoplay, and I was in here, I was like, oh, he's saying that in Destiny, like, they added some kind of ranking system in PvP, but then they didn't have it as a part of like the Iron Banner. So it hadn't yet trickled into, like, other content. So it's like, wait, now I want to rank up in PvP, but now you also have this limited event for Iron Banner. Like, why can't I do both? And now I'm seeing that you can. Like, it's like, if you're doing PvP, you're ranking up in either Glory or Valor or something like that. I'm still
like, one is Glory is the competitive playlist only, and then Valor is like quick play and all that stuff. And Iron Banner gives Valor too, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, 1 second. My air for some reason kicked on. Continue with the conversation. I don't want that to show up on the podcast.
So one of the things that free-to-play games kind of struggle with, as I listen to all of this, is implicit versus explicit rewards. So implicit rewards means that the game is just fun. So, like, arcade games are implicitly fun. You sit down and you just play it to play it. Pinball is a good example, right? You play pinball because it's fun to play pinball. You're not getting tickets, you're not getting tokens, maybe you're becoming better at pinball, but that's about it. So it's a reward in itself. And an explicit is like the definition of just that grind in an RPG where you do it for the loot. You hate the content, you're not having fun, everybody with you's not having fun, but you do it because they're paying you. You do it because they're giving you some piece of loot at the end so shiny that you would literally beat your head against a wall just to be given that loot. And so that's your explicit reward. And these games, typically, they bounce somewhere in between. So an implicit reward is like you're saying, it's fun. Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you just enjoy it? But the explicit reward is very shiny. And so we do want some explicit rewards. And then we want the game to be implicitly fun on its own. And where I struggle with free-to-play games is that a lot of times the explicit has to be locked behind the paywall. It has to. There can't be any way to get at the shiny stuff without that paywall. So as I listen to all this stuff, like that's my only like inkling of concern.
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in possibly coming back. What makes me nervous is like, okay, but their mod is so good. I go into PvP or I queue up to do a strike or whatever, and then I'm in there and these people, their shotgun reloads 3 times as fast as mine. It's like,
Yeah.
like it's just that because they put that shiny thing because their goal is to get me on the other side of the paywall, and rather than saying, hey, I appreciate you supporting me and I'll make it worth your time, it's like, no, if you don't do this, you're gonna be garbage.
So yeah, and that's a concern, like especially with Armor 2.0, we don't know everything about it. How powerful is it going to be, and how much better am I going to be than you if I have Armor 2.0 and you don't? That's a 100% a concern, because I think like they just announced today with Solstice of Heroes that the set that you get there will be your first Armor 2.0 set. If you get the full set, then you can go and redeem the Armor 2.0 version when Shadowkeep launches. So that obviously means that the current gear isn't just inherently getting upgraded as well.
Right.
So that's a concern, and that's a great question. Yeah, like how much more powerful are you going to be? The thing is, I feel like there's, again, enough content in the free-to-play version that it's looking so good. Like, for example, you play the game, you do the whole campaign, you've got strikes, you've got Crucible, you've got all the stuff, but then you've got that Leviathan raid. You've got an end game pinnacle activity that you can go, and the loot from there is actually worth getting. Some of the raid loot, the hand cannon is still one of the best in the game. People still, I know some people that still run it, even though it has a preset roll, it can't get random rolls. It's very, very good. The inaugural address pulse rifle is one of the best pulse rifles in the game. Like, I was using it right up to before I got my bygones, and it was like slightly better rolls. So again, that's one of those weapons I mentioned earlier that's like, it's not necessarily meta, but it's so good that like if you're playing against a bunch of Armor 2.0 users and you're a good player, can hit your shots, and you've got that inaugural address you got from the Leviathan, you're going to be slaying out. You're going to be killing a bunch of people who think they're high and mighty with their Armor 2.0. I have no doubt in my mind. There's an exotic you get from it, the Activision shotgun, which is actually a powerful heavy shotgun in PvP, and it can like absolutely destroy people, and a lot of people actually even still use it. So there's going to be enough, I seriously think there's going to be enough explicit rewards in the free-to-play version that it's going to keep people very busy for a long time. Escalation, the ice, I'm not even kidding, I was playing yesterday and doing I'm just grinding forges to try to get a masterwork. I'm still using my Escalation Protocol shotgun from Warmind. That's how good that weapon is. So you do have those things. Now, to your point, slightly different point about like, am I going to get all these things and still be up against brick wall, incredibly overpowered people with their new stuff? I honestly don't know. The way it's balanced, though, and the way there's weapon archetypes and stuff, I can't imagine that you'd be that disadvantaged. Like, and the things we're talking about is somewhat minor differences. Like, yeah, your shotgun reloading is faster, but who cares if you can die in one shotgun shot? You know, it's kind of creates some niche scenarios where you can potentially get some benefit out of there, but for the most part, it's minor benefits rather than changes to overall gameplay. So yeah, I see your concern, and I don't exactly know. I think it should be fine though.
Let's we got a little bit left in the show, and so I got just kind of 2 questions, and I'll bundle them to one. Rick, what changes are you still waiting on or hoping for, and then is now a time for players to return?
Well, the first one, I think the thing I really want to return is right now, I think the raid loot is really, really bad. They're basically glorified legendary weapons, and like I said, some of them end up being quite powerful, and that's fine. But in Destiny 1, they were a lot better. In Destiny 1, if you got a raid loot, it had a specific intrinsic perk And not only that, it often had unique perks that other weapons couldn't get. So in the last raid, Wrath of the Machine, you had an auto rifle that had focused fireflies. So when it killed an enemy, their heads would explode, damage nearby enemies. Auto rifles could not get firefly, could not. So that was the only gun in the game that could have a perk like that. And that made it super unique, and it made it feel like a raid weapon. Now, with the raid weapons, again, they have the same perks. They're in the same archetypes as other legendary weapons. So it's like, why would I do the raid? I really hope they change that. Armor 2, I think it should have intrinsic perks for raids. That's kind of one of my main, because I'm such a raider, like that's one of my main things. I really hope they overhaul the raid rewards and make them a little bit better. And the second question, is it a time to hop in? Like, if you're doing fine on money, this is a great time to hop in, because it means that you can do a lot of the content and get ready. You can get some great weapons. You can get some great stuff. So when the flood happens with the free-to-play and Shadowkeep, you're on top. You're matching against all the free-to-play players in PvP. You've got some decent weapons, and you've got the advantage.
Go to town, right? Rack up that KDA.
And then you kind of you know what to do for the upcoming part. You can get your foot in the door, but to be honest, like, because it's going free to play and because the free to play offering is so good, I think that's probably the time to do it, is like get into free to play it. And if you enjoy it, then you can just go right and outright purchase Shadowkeep and get all that new content that everyone's in for. And then if you really like that, then I think you can look backwards and start picking off some of the annual pass content, like Season of Opulence, that was very good. You can get Forsaken. You can kind of go backwards and then keep improving your character that way. So
Chris, I like to wrap up the show here. I'll go to you, and then we'll go back to Rick. But I think there's a lot of people probably who are in the same boat as you. You know, that it's, I
can't blame them,
right? And there's nothing wrong with it. What would essentially be that flare in the sky that would have you go, okay, like, you got my attention?
Knowing that, so I'm not afraid to spend money. I have 2 monthly subscription games that I'm actively subscribed to right now. So it's not a money issue. The free-to-play questions come because you made the social contract to call yourself free to game. I didn't ask you to do that. If you wanted to stay paid, that was fine. You chose to make it free, and now I expect you to deliver a good free experience. And so I think the fact that they've made the barrier to entry so low, one of my issues, because I'm lucky that my wife and I happen to be financially in a position where we can afford to buy games when we want to. If a game comes out and I want to play it, I can pick it up today. And we're very lucky to be there. So now I feel very differently about my money when it comes to gaming, in that I feel like I'm supporting them. I'm making a vote. I'm making a choice. And so my fear with going back to Destiny is I don't want to give them my money, because I don't want to tell them good job, because I did that with Destiny 2. I gave them my money, and then there was no way to take it back. There was no way to, like, I just want you to know that dollar was not a very nice dollar. And there's no way to undo that. So there's something nice about this free to play coming back that does intrigue me, in saying I can come back and they can see my watch time shows I'm interested. And then if I stop playing, they can see my watch time said not good enough. I like the idea that I have an analytic that represents me and people like me that can vote. So I'm interested in going back. Obviously, my concern is that, am I going to be baited into free-to-play mechanics? One of the nice things about a paywall, it's just a flat, you pay or you don't, is once you're on the other side, you're a member of the club. You're never going to get asked for that one more dollar. You're never going to be told if you've just done that one more microtransaction, if you've just done that one more thing. And that's what free-to-play games are. The stereotype of them negatively assumes. It's not always the case, but there's a reason we're cautious against it. So I'm definitely interested in trying it for free. I'll give it my hard drive space. As long as I know that I'm not going to show up and I'm not going to the party, and the moment I walk in, they're like, oh, did you not pay? Because now that you drove an hour to get here, you might as well pay, right? Because that would really frustrate me. I want to give them my money again. I want that to be my choice, not some guilt trip they gave me once I got in game.
Rick, what are your final thoughts? Where can people find you, and what do you have coming up on your channel?
Well, final thoughts is just like this whole thing, I think that this is seriously like where Destiny 2 explodes. Like, free to play. The thing is, like, as to what you were just saying, yeah, it's like you kind of, a lot of people were burned. A lot of people were very burned. And I can sit here and say Forsaken turned everything around. Random rolls are so much better. The new weapon system is so much better. And those things are all true. But you're like, well, I already got burned. Like, why should I do this again?
Mm-hmm.
The free to play gives you an entry point where you can go in and say, is this guy right? And then you can try it for yourself. And if you end up not enjoying it, that's fine. But there's basically no reason to not at least give it a try again. And I think when most people give it a try, they'll be like, oh, this is actually a good game. And importantly, this is one of the first times we've had a paid game, a paid experience, and 2 expansions go free to play and not have a free to play game built from the ground up. And that therefore they're going to avoid some of the annoying free to play tropes. Warframe, great game, unbelievable value for free to play, but pretty annoying at Dauntless 2 when you try to buy something and it's like, come back in 24 hours to get your thing. And you're like, I hate that so much. I want it right now. Destiny won't have any of that because it's not built like a free to play from the ground up. It's built like a paid experience. You're going to get a paid experience for free, basically. So yeah, I think honestly, like that aspect is so huge. The new content looks pretty sweet. I seriously think, and then they can fund themselves with DLCs. They don't have to do all the crazy microtransactions that some of the other free-to-plays do. So, yeah, I think it's going to be absolutely, like, this fall is going to be the Destiny renaissance, basically. And as for where people can find me, on YouTube, Kackis HD, on Twitter, at Rick Kackis, and yeah, that's about it. I don't really stream Twitch anymore, so...
We don't consider ourselves streamers either, even though we blast this out, etc. Chris, what are you working on? Where can people find us?
Working on Final Fantasy XIV, building up towards WoW Classic. Pretty excited about that. Might be downloading Destiny here. I think Rick's going to convince me to, at least when free to play goes, just give it a shot. There are free to play models I admire. Obviously, the battle royale games do very well with it. MOBAs do really well with it. But when you get outside of that space, there's a lot of tropes that can be big pitfalls for gaming. So I'm definitely interested in that. And then you can find me right here. And we stream on Monday nights on YouTube. Any other time we stream, it is random and unassigned on Twitch. But we're trying to do more of that as we've been playing a lot more games.
All right. And then obviously, so everybody watching this podcast or listening, next week we have Az from Heels versus Babyface coming up on the program. That should be a fun and interesting conversation. We got a lot of other people scheduled to come on throughout August and September. So thank you guys so much for watching. For Work to Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
My name is Rick Kackis.
Thanks so much for watching this podcast. We hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Whoa, you guys are the best. Jorge, Kyle, Philip, 31 Edwards, Rock Druid, Corey Longwith, Aaron, Axis, Hambone, Lady Wild Plays, CN Navs, this is going too fast, Christopher, Phil, Shun, Dragons, Soul, Keen, Knights, Assassin, Carlos, Sherry, Robert, Leyland, Davon, Tim, Jojo World, Terrace, Sora, Scrublord, Trevor, Mill, Almond, 70s, Kimber, Tyler, oh my god, I'm so sorry, Cody, Legend, Carlos, Endless, Jonathan, Jade, Sai, Derek, Brandon, Aaron, Riku, Daryl, Chemistro, Lauren, The Wolf, the Gar, Kelly, Anthony, Solid, John, Huskree, oh my god, everybody, Dark Later, Christopher, Vestments, John, Nopi, Brian, Tom, Dylan, Silent, whew, I missed your names. I'm sorry. I love you all. Oh my gosh, that was tough.